お前ら
かかってこい。
何行くぞ。さあこれで文句はないな。
Now for something different. Yakuza Dead Souls, subtitled Of the End in Japan, came out a year after Yakuza 4 and is a zombie third-person shooter. It got pretty mixed reviews, but I like it, though it has some problems. The game has 4 playable characters, just like Yakuza 4, but this time Saejima and Tanimura are gone, replaced by Goro Majima and... which is a real treat for lovers of Yakuza 2 like me. These 4 have different weapon affinities. Akiyama has dual pistols, Majima the best shotguns, Goda has a damn minigun strapped to his arm like Barrett from Final Fantasy VII, and Kiryu gets a really heavy sniper rifle that can blow through several zombies in one shot. Kazuma, who again enters in the final part, is a bit slow to realize that the people with glowing red eyes and pale skin are actually zombies, so when he comes to Kamurocho, he actually fights with his fists. The zombies getting up time and time again is an undead giveaway though. The story in this game is much shorter and simpler than the previous games, but it's still good. The villain is Tetsuo Nikaido from the Omi Alliance, and his mysterious and androgynous assistant Didi. Kaido kidnaps Haruka to lure out Kiryu and get revenge on him for humiliating his boss Goda in Yakuza 2. It's revealed pretty early that the zombies and the monsters probably weren't the cause of some disease, but something more sinister. Anyway, the story is pretty straightforward, but the highlights really are getting to play as Majima and Goda. The scene where Majima realizes what's going on is hilarious. Majima is a fun character, because he's really enjoying everything that happens. And like I said, as someone whose favorite game in the series is Yakuza 2, playing as Goda is a lot of fun. His minigun is fun to use, but of course he can use other weapons too. So yes, for the first time in the series there's more to say about the gameplay than the story. And the game's flaws mostly reside in the gameplay department too. The most obvious one is that when you go into free aiming mode by pressing L2, you have to use the left stick instead of the right, which is what every other game and their mom uses. It is awkward to use the left stick, but at least I got fairly used to it as the game went on. And luckily there's a second way to do things. You can lock on loosely with L1, and doing this you can strafe and turn the camera with the right stick. It's the technique you'll end up using the most, I think. The most hair-pulling part in the game due to the left stick aiming is in Kiryu's part, where you have to fight a flying enemy while zombies attack you on the ground. It requires good, quick aiming, and it's really annoying. Another annoying thing is zombies that somehow have the intelligence and resources to throw molotovs at you, and the bulkier zombies that shoulder rush you. Sometimes you can get knocked all around in battle. While I'm whining, I better mention that the zombies spawn too much, falling down from holes in the ceiling and crawling out of vents over and over. It gets annoying for me, who has some kind of OCD, where I feel I need to kill all of them before I can move on. I also have to mention that the loading times in this game are too long and too frequent. It's not a deal breaker for me though. I said in my first review that the series reminds me of Dead Rising, the way you can pick up most anything to use as a weapon. Well, here it's even more so. Not just because of zombies, but because it counts all the zombies you kill, and you get points for killing them in different ways. There are a few sub-stories with escorts, but there's also partner characters you can unlock, 14 in all, to bring along with you that actually pull their weight somewhat. Although they can't throw off zombies that grab them for some reason. The heat moves in previous games is here replaced with heat sniping, where you shoot explosive barrels and the like to kill a lot of zombies in one go. You can even throw grenades, then heat snipe them, which is cool. Weapon modding was like a bonus in the other games, but here it's a necessity. One point that most people like to bring up about this game is how almost all the enemies and bosses look like they were ripped off from other games, primarily Left 4 Dead and Resident Evil, although their behaviors are different. Meatheads look like tanks, crybabies looks like witches, monkey boys looks like jockeys, fatties looks like boomers, aggros looks like hunters, the unrocky prototype looks like El Gigante from Resident Evil 4, covered in rocks. The Diptera reminds me of the little flying monster in House of the Dead 2, the one that tells you to suffer like G did. And the Hermit reminds me of the Brolder from Super Mario 3D World, although that came out later so it can't be considered a ripoff. Lastly, the Arahabaki prototype looks like the Licker from Resident Evil 2. On the minigame front, everything from Yakuza 4 is still here, but there's really nothing added unless you count Gary's Boot Camp, a training game which can develop both you and your partner's abilities. I'm not sure I'd call it a minigame, but there's also the so-called Enchanted Manholes, which is like a dungeon crawling thing. There's also an infinite one where you see how low you can go. That one's like a survival mode. The best sub-story this time, no doubt, is during Majima's part where the lack of volunteers forced Daigo to step up and help out, by dressing up as a woman, to lure out the zombies that Majima is certain will only attack couples, just like in the movies. I like this game, and I think you might too. You need patience though. The game starts out a bit on the serious side with Akiyama. It feels almost like it's trying to be a survival horror. As soon as Majima's part hits though, the game loosens up and starts having more fun with itself, so to speak. And it is fun, despite the control deficiencies. Most of the sub-stories have humor to them, even though the main story is relatively serious. I can't with good conscience call Yakuza Dead Souls a great game, but it is a good game. And if you're a fan of the series like I am, I'd say it's a very good game.
貴様！こんなデタラメ！今の俺に触るな。何をするか分からねえぜ。